Hey there, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Album Homework Assignment. We've got in the co-captain's chairs today, going head to head, Mr. Jamie Laszlo and Bryce from Bryce Talks Metal. What's going on, fellas? How are
What's
you?
going on, Pete?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. It's another Sunday morning. We got hopefully some cool stuff that you guys have been listening to for the last week or two. I'm very anxious to hear what you both have given each other. So we're going to start off with Bryce. What were you given as a homework assignment from Mr. Laszlo?
All right. So Jamie, first he started off by saying to me, what percent of music that you listen to is metal? He's like 100%. I'm like, well, about 80% metal, 70% hard, or 80% metal and 20% 70s hard rock. And he's like, okay, well, I like to get you out of your comfort zone. So I'm like, oh, goodness, what's he gonna assign me? But he gives me Crime of the Century by Supertramp. So came out in 1974. There it is. That caught my attention. Really cool album cover there. All the formats. That's awesome. But A&M Records in 1974, and I'll start off with like my prior knowledge of Supertramp. Just like a casual listener, I know like 4 or 5 of their songs, and they're actually all on the Breakfast in America album, which is like their huge, big selling album with like 4 million copies in the US. So I know those, and also on a Supernatural episode, one of them is called Goodbye Stranger, and it's got a really great scene playing that song as it goes out. It's my favorite show, but that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge with them. Never looked them up. But one thing I really like to do is just research bands. So I've done all this research. They formed, one thing said 1969, one said 70. Jamie, I don't know if you can confirm which year they formed, 69 or 70.
The first album was 69. I don't know if they formed before that.
Okay, yeah. I saw, so yeah, they have 11 albums total. Crime of the Century is their third album. It's like one of their first albums that really started to sell well. I think it went gold in the US, diamond in Canada, which is over 1 million in Canada, which is a lot. There's 8 songs on it, just over 44 minutes. And, with me with this, I'll say it's not really my exact cup of tea, I'll be honest, but it does have some ups to the album, some good points. I really enjoy the vocals. Trading off between the guys, I wrote their names down, Rick Davies and Roger Hodgson. Really like Roger's like high vocals. It almost kind of reminds me of like a Triumph situation. You got one guy with like the lower gruff vocal a little bit, and one guy that hits the really high notes. Personally, I like the highs a bit better, but they're both really good singers. Out of these 8 songs, I thought there was some pretty good stuff. The key tracks, I think Rudy was probably my favorite song. That one gets going a little bit there. I think that's a really cool, really well done song. And another thing that I think is pretty admirable about the band that is really impressive, honestly, is that there was 9 instruments that are played on this album. I wrote them all down. Really, there's some of the stuff I didn't even know was a thing. The Wurlitzer electric piano. I've never even heard of that, but there's that and a regular piano and keyboards, harmonica, saxophone, clarinet, bass, drums, guitar, of course, but super impressive, amazing musicianship from these guys. The instrumentation is top tier, but as I said, it's not my exact cup of tea. A couple of the moments I think are a tad cheesy in spots, but I think it is pretty hard rocking in spots. The one song that I wrote down was Bloody Well Right. That one, it starts off a little slow, but then it kicks in, and it's almost just like a straightforward hard rock song for a minute there. But overall, I think it's okay. For my personal ranking, I would give it about a 5 out of 10. But it's not the worst thing ever. Obviously, it's pretty good, but it's pretty good, I'd say.
Cool. Yeah, probably considered their classic, I think, by most Supertramp fans, even though it's not their big seller. Yeah, it's and it's a great sounding album too. I think
it is. The production is really good.
Yeah, I mean, there are days, most people say, the best sounding rock or prog album of all time is like Dark Side of the Moon. But there are times where I play Crime of the Century and I'm like, I don't know, man. I think Crime of the Century is a better sounding album to me personally. But but I mean, there's a lot of good variety on the album. I think I totally agree with you on that. And it does rock in spots. I don't know. For fans, it's a great album. I absolutely love Crime of the Century. But if you're not into, this kind of pop prog type of thing. It's, you know, it's from its time. I could totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, Hodgson, he is the guitarist too. They're not really like a guitar oriented band from what I can tell for the most part. But you know, when he starts playing, you know, he's got great tone, some really nice guitar parts mixed in here and there, spottily through the album.
Yeah, he's a really lyrical player, but yeah, it's not a guitar band by any means. Yeah, you got a little sax and some piano and keyboards, and for them, it's more like this, like wall of sound, so to speak. But it's quiet in spots, a little bombastic in other spots, very whimsical and quirky, very unique band, really unique band. So since you knew like some stuff from Breakfast in America, like how do you compare this album to that album?
You know, it's weird because typically I'd say I like deeper cuts, you know, stuff that's not as well known, but I really actually do dig a lot of those songs on Breakfast in America. I don't know, just like growing up listening to classic rock radio in the car with my parents. I'm actually really familiar with a couple of those songs that are on there. And I think I probably would say I prefer that slightly, but I think both are pretty good.
It's a top 10 album for me.
All time.
I bought it on cassette when I was like 14 at a garage sale.
Wow.
And I only knew Breakfast in America at the time. And I saw that and I was like, oh, they have other albums? I didn't know. And I bought it and instantly fell in love with it, played it nonstop. And I would say the title cut, that's as good as music gets. I was just playing it before we taped this. And again, I'm like, this is so damn good.
That was a pretty epic ending to the album.
Yeah, the big epic ending. And the reason I gave it,
piano is amazing on that song.
I was going to say a few of the piano parts were kind of reminding me just in certain spots of like, you know, when Leonard Skinner gets going with like fast boogie, like piano playing, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, which I think was pretty cool.
But the whole dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 and it just builds and builds. The reason I gave it to you is because I wanted to get you out of your comfort zone. You know, Bryce talks metal, we all know that, but I wanted him to talk about something else, see what happens. But I wanted to give you something poppy, but something that had a dark side to it as well, something that would hold your interest, and something maybe a little proggy. And I thought that brought it all, the trifecta right there.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, I got to ask the question, Bryce. I think I know what your answer is going to be. So would you ever consider maybe purchasing this one, or maybe something you just might listen to from time to time? Or would you, after today's episode, I'm never listening to Crime of the Century ever again?
You know, I'll be honest. I don't think I would buy it. I might occasionally stream it, but probably not too often. I'll be honest.
Okay. Well, you never know. Someday, 10 years from now, you may be in a conversation with someone and be like, oh, you know, one of the greatest albums of the 70s, Crime of the Century by Supertramp. And you'll be like, you know what? I did an album homework assignment on that all these years ago on Sea of Tranquility. I'm going to go revisit that album, and you never know. It might hit you differently at that point in time.
Like real homework you did in school. Someone brings up a book. I did a book report on that in 8th grade.
Yeah, it's also crazy to think, you know, I think you've said this before, Pete, but like stuff when you listen to it younger and then 20, 30 years later, you'll go back to it. I think Music from the Elder is a good example. People bring that up, like Kiss fans, they talk about how they hated it back in the early 80s, but now they come back to it like 30 years later and they like it. So
I'm
one of them. I mean, I hated Music from the Elder back in the day. Now I listen to it, I'm like, you know what? It's really not all that bad. You know, maybe as a Kiss record, it's kind of like, but as an album on its own, it's really not that bad. It really isn't. And there's a lot of bands that I kind of ignored or just didn't really care for much when I was younger. And now I'm kind of like, holy crap, you know, it's like, I mean, Steely Dan's one of them. Elton John's another one. It's like, you know, these are bands that I was like, yeah, okay. You know, I like some songs here and there when I was, you know, a teenager in my 20s or whatever. And now in my 50s, I'm like, oh my God, genius level stuff. So, you know, you never know when that might happen. Right. So cool. All right. Well, Jamie, what were you given as an assignment from Bryce?
I was given some deep cut, man. He gave me a band called Madison, and the album is Diamond Mistress.
Madison Diamond Mistress.
Yeah, have you heard of this band, Pete?
No.
Yeah, deep. We're going deep. When I started listening to it on YouTube, I thought it was a newer band doing 80s style of music, you know, like Steel Panther kind of thing. because those retro bands exist out there. You know, they're trying to capture that 80s sound. But no, this is from the day, man. This is 1985, I believe. I think it came out in Sweden, and they're Swedish. It came out in 1984 in Sweden, and I think it came out in 1985 in the UK and Japan. So it never even came out in America. But I was thinking, you know, they're hair metalish. They're hair metalish enough. And I was thinking, man, I never heard of these guys. They are pretty low on the scale of popularity. Then I started thinking of all the popular bands, and I was like, I should put them all in order of popularity. How would I do that? Well, you heard of the pie chart before. Here we have the hair chart. And you see we got the big hair here. And I would say, can you see it? Because this is important shit. I would say on the outer rim, the highest point of hair, you've got your Bon Jovi. And in the day, Bon Jovi was hair metal. Underneath that, right a little bit underneath, almost on the same level, even though they invented it pretty much, Motley Crue. Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, that's your big two. Underneath that, Poison, a little lower, and then maybe Cinderella. Then you got your Warrants and your Wingers, and we're getting closer to the scalp, guys. Getting buried in the hairspray here. And then you can't forget, or maybe you can forget, maybe a lot of people forgot, Faster Pussycat. Bullet Boys. Smooth Up in Ya. One of the worst concerts I ever saw. I saw them as a teenager with Cinderella. I went for Cinderella. Man, they were awful. So, but then you got bands even less popular. And this isn't, so don't get your spandex all in a bunch, people. This is just popularity, not talent. And if I say the word hair metal, you know, you say hair metal sometimes, and it's like you said a racial slur.
Yeah, some people don't like that at all.
Upset. It's just a term, so we all know what we're talking about.
Say Eddie Trunk is gonna be pissed about this if he sees it.
Well, he probably wouldn't even call TNT a hair metal band, but I don't care. I'm putting them there. And then right below them, I'm putting Babylon AD, if you remember those guys.
Wow, Babylon AD, sure.
Bango the Bells, Bango the Bells, yeah.
Yep.
And then even lower, I just found out about this band. They got played on the Peacemaker show, new TV show. They go deep into hair metal in that show. Tiger Tails, we're putting them at the very bottom. They were an English band, and they got played during the ending credits of a Peacemaker episode. I had to Shazam it to see who the hell they were. And then if you can't see this logo of Tiger Tails, I made it bigger, because let's talk about Tiger Tails for just 1 second. You got this tiger, and he's giving you the finger, and he's got a gun. So bad attitude, right? These guys must be badasses. This is what they look like.
Wow, that's a lot of hair. Holy smokes.
And look at them holding each other. Isn't that sweet? So I was thinking, these guys like tigers. They got a bad FU kind of attitude. They love guns. What's that remind me of?
Oh, yeah.
It was probably a huge fan of Tiger Tails. Anyways, enough of them. So where does Madison show up on this hair chart, you might ask? Well, if you get, can you see that? This is a detailed close-up of the human hair, okay? And you got the hair, and then down below here, you got the hair bulb follicle. And even below that, you got the dermal papilla. So you got the dermal papilla at the very bottom. Madison is underneath the dermal papilla, way down deep. I probably got a lot of Madison on my head, but you can't see it. So Let's talk about this band nobody knows. I put them into YouTube. You know how you type into something into YouTube and you put in like Steely and it starts to fill in down below. Dan, you mean Dan. I put in Madison, Diamond, Mist, and it still didn't know what I was talking about. It's like, dude, you lost me. I have no idea. I had to put the whole thing in.
Jamie, Mr. Laszlo, we have a video on Madison, Wisconsin for you. If you
yeah.
That, right?
Yeah. And I finally found it. And I looked at the views these songs have. We will get more views by noon today than these songs have in the past 12 years. So let's talk about the album. Hold on. Laszlo needs a drink of water.
Yeah, I was just going to say, too, I did write this down, the Spotify comparison. I was going to mention it, but I forgot. Supertramp gets like 6.6 million per month listeners, and Madison's at 929. Hopefully we can boost it up a little bit from the show.
Go, right? Oh, yeah. Go out there, guys, and listen, because a lot of people watching right now, even you, Pete, are probably going to like this band. Now, look, when it was a bit of a shock to me. Where the hell's my album? Anyways, it was a bit of shock to me when I started hearing it because I had to get my 80 legs back. You know how you got to get your sea legs because you haven't been on a ship in a while. I had to close my eyes and I had to listen to it in a specific kind of way. It's 1985. I just turned 16. I'm driving my 1983 Escort. This is playing on my cassette player. I'm ready. That's what I needed to do. So, and I should say these guys they're kind of hair metal, but they have traditional metal. They're a bit heavier than hair metal, and they're a little bit more complex than a lot of your White Lines and stuff. So, track 1, Lay Down Your Arms. I got all kinds of notes on every song. It starts with the ringing of the bells chiming. Okay, that's cool. Then it's got the intro of the twin guitars, and the lead singer comes in, and he sounds like, these guys are Swedish. He sounds like Joey Tempest, who's another Swedish singer. So I'm wondering, did everyone in the 80s sound like Joey Tempest? I don't know. But the guy can sing. The question is, does his tone and voice resonate with me personally? Nah, it's okay in this song. But then in the middle of the song, out of nowhere, comes this cool Iron Maiden kind of breakdown. And you're like, where's this coming from? I did not expect that. A little bit of a curveball. So not bad, not a bad song, but it is a little long at 5 minutes. And then Run Boy comes on, and it kind of sounds like your basic filler on an 80s metal album. When I say 80s metal, I don't mean like Maiden Priest. I mean 80s metal, the kind of metal that you know right away. That's 80s metal. It's kind of lazily constructed, I would say, and it's somewhere between Europe and Dio. But the vocals sometimes. You remember when Beavis and Butthead would make fun of like a guy wailing a little bit? I could see Beavis and Butthead making fun of him because he sings "Run for." I'm like, oh, dude. Oh man. I'm from the school of less is more, because then when you eventually do more, it feels like more, and then it's more memorable. But that's another song. It's almost 5 minutes long. Sneaker comes in. It's driving rhythm. The vocals are 80s like, but they're a bit more reserved. So he doesn't hold the notes as long, because that can bog a song down for me. And he does a little evil laugh and vocals at the end that almost hints at extreme metal, like early examples of extreme metal and a hair metal-ish band. So that's cool. I think that's cool. Don't Look Around. You starts off with your basic, riff that we've all heard 1,000 times. The vocals wear on me in the chorus, and it seems like very cliche until, again, in the middle, the Maiden Gallop comes out of nowhere again, left field. Whoa, that was cool. So, and then they got a hey, hey chant in the song. It sounds like Accept. So this band is combining like Dio and Europe and Maiden and Bon Jovi into, and this is mid 80s. So that I find impressive. Pictures Return, here comes a cheesy ballad. You always need the cheesy ballad, at least one of them. And all the cheesy ballads by hair metal bands, glam metal bands, in the 80s, I didn't like a lot of them. Some of them I did. But when I didn't even like them, I could see they had a charm about them, and I understood why other people like them. This one, it wasn't going to be a hit. I didn't know if they thought it was going to be a hit, but it starts to pick up halfway through when the band sets in and the drums come in, but it's a little too late. So yeah, I'm not feeling that one. Then Diamond Mistress comes on, and it's the old the last song was a ballad, so we're going to make up for it and be extra heavy on the next song. Happens 1,000 times. This is as close to speed metal as this kind of band gets. And then again, they do the cool Maiden-like thing in the middle. Things you don't expect. It was surprising once. It gets surprising the third time. He sounds a lot like Joey Tempest on this song. But even though it's a fast song, everyone's in a good groove. They're in a good spot. It doesn't feel forced. It's that one of the heavier songs, but it doesn't sound like they're trying too hard. Then Don't Go comes on, and the Don't Go lyric is way too repetitive. And then he does that, what I said before, but he does it with the word before. Oh man. You had to let that one go. Is that guy doing anything these days? Oh, he sang for Yngwie Malmsteen on a couple albums.
Yeah, Goran Edman. He was on the Eclipse album in 1990 and Fire and Ice in 92.
See?
I don't know exactly what he's doing these days, but
Goran Edman is like showing up everywhere.
Is he?
Yeah.
I did not know he was on Yngwie until I saw Bryce's last video, and he mentioned that. Squealer comes on, and this, even though it's a hair metal-y kind of song, it reminds me of Tony Martin Black Sabbath era a little bit because it's darker and it's got a little cool evil laugh. But I mean, it's not as good as Tony Martin's Sabbath, but it kind of reminded me of that. Changes, track number 9. It's a better ballad than the previous one. This one, I could have seen maybe being a mild hit. It could have captured the interest of a lot of big-haired 80s chicks at the time, driving on their way to the mall with the top down. I could see them playing this song. Turn Me Loose is not a cover of the Loverboy song, but it's a high-energy song, and it's got another Maiden gallop for the 4th time, I believe. These guys, it's not an awful song. And that's the last song. To sum it all up, I would say, this album, it's a tricky album. I listened to it about 5 times. The songs are too long, some of them. They're too repetitive. The vocals get on my nerves just a bit because they feel dated. The album reminds me of the new Boba Fett show. For a moment here and there, you're like, that's cool. And then there's long stretches of, all right. And it's funny that he went on to sing for Yngwie, because I made a note last week before I knew that, comparing his voice to Yngwie. I said the singer's voice can be like Yngwie Malmsteen playing. Yeah, I know you can hit all the notes. I get it. Now control your damn self. Because, I mean, for me, I don't care what skills you have. I care what you do with the skills that you have. Some people care more about the skills. I get it. But music to me is not a circus act. It's an art form. So there you go. I'm very perplexed on my feelings on this album. I'm proud of them for doing things at certain spots and merging different subgenres together the way they did.
So I assume you're not running out to buy this one anytime soon.
Buy what? Oh, yeah. I already forgot it, Pete.
Well, I am very curious to hear it. because
go out. You know what? I bet you like it.
I like Gore. I like him as a singer, to be honest. I mean, he sang in John Norum. There's the Europe kind of connection. He sang in John Norum's solo band. He sang with Brazen Abbott and did a couple albums with Yngwie. And if you look up Goran Edmonds' Wikipedia page, it's ridiculous. He has been on a million albums. He was Time Requiem. I played with Richard Anderson. Jesus, so many, like, and a lot of them, are like bands you never heard of before. But man, he's just done a ton of shit. So apparently, I guess this was the first band.
It reminds me of this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know why? Because I just listening to you describe some of these songs, I was thinking in my head, and also considering they're Swedish, I'm like, geez, maybe the first two Europe albums, because they do a lot of those Maiden type gallops on there, right? And where they're a little ballad, a little kind of speed metal, a little gothic metal, right? It's all over.
Pretty similar.
Right. Yeah. I know those albums from my childhood, so when I listen to them, there's nostalgia. I normally got about 4 beers in me because that's the only time I really reach for that kind of music. With that being fresh, it's like cold water in the face a bit for me. But that's just me. In my case.
I'm gonna go listen to it because I'm pretty intrigued now.
You go buy it. It's cheap. You can. Oh, you don't buy vinyl though. I think the CD is more expensive.
All right, so we got is like,
hey, when you go listen to it, type in the whole thing.
I'm gonna
know what it's talking about.
Madison Diamond Mistress, 1984. Yep. All right, there you go.
Yep.
So they only had the 2
I have a question for Bryce, though.
Oh, yeah, good.
So, Bryce, you know these deep cut 80s bands like that at your age. I want to know, when you were listening to these bands in high school, were your buddies looking at you like you had 3 heads, because maybe they got like Kings of Leon on, and they're like, dude, why are you listening to these grandpa rock?
Yeah. Pretty much. I had about
1 or 2 friends in high school that actually liked some metal, and it was mainly just like Iron Maiden or Metallica. But even like playing baseball, we had walk-up songs when we come to the plate, and like it's not like anything super obscure, but I had Somebody Save Me by Cinderella, Symphony of Destruction, and Master of Puppets, and everybody else has like some random like crappy rap song or country. Right. I live in Georgia, so it's like country or rap, and then like nobody pays attention to anything else. But yeah, everybody used to kind of make fun of me anytime they see me. They'd be like, "Oh, Megadeth," because I like Megadeth so much. It's my favorite band. They would just always bring that up. Like, okay, yeah.
Well, congratulations to you, sir, for sticking to your guns and not giving a shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's something to be said for just kind of going with what you like and screw everybody else, right?
Yeah. I used to get made fun of for like listening to America's greatest hits, Oh, listen to Bon Jovi and but whatever.
You can like that too, right?
Yeah. Right.
Cool. All right. Well, we didn't get any buys today out of today's episode, but that's okay, right? Because I think you both got introduced to albums you never heard before, and whether you love it or not, hey, it was a good experiment and a pretty entertaining show, I thought. Basically, what I got out of this is that now I have an album that I got to go listen to. So
you'll probably buy it.
Yeah. I wasn't part of the homework here today, but I'm going to go out and do it anyway. So so I'm looking forward to listening to a little bit of Madison, and Crime of the Century I know and love really well. So I know I don't need to do that. So cool. Well, thanks guys for doing this today. This has been great. Bryce, any updates? What's going on over at Bryce Talks Metal these days?
Well, a lot of the same old stuff. I did just do 2 interviews pretty recently, a couple weeks back. One with James McBain from Hellripper, and Gabriel Franco from Unto Others. If anybody wants to check those out.
Hellripper's good. I like Hellripper.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. Or he's awesome. It's just a one-man
band.
Yeah, he does everything. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, and Let's Get Physical, my page. Come on over. I would put the link in the comments below, but every time I put the link, it disappears. YouTube won't allow it. Yeah, and I can put the name. Yeah. I can put the name, Let's Get Physical. But if I say search for those 2 words in front of it, that disappears too. Weird.
Yeah, those YouTube rules. I don't know what's going on with that. I got
crazy. Yeah.
Nothing to do with me. I don't, I don't make those rules. So
but if you love physical media, come on over.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. People just showing pictures of all this shit they got, right? So,
Right.
but it's the shit that we love, right?
Yes.
Cool. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned for another album homework assignment next Sunday. And tomorrow, it's Monday. You know what Monday means. Hudson Valley Squares time. We've got, oh boy, we got a big one this week. We're doing another 1982 album war as we're celebrating all month long albums that are 40 years old here in 2022. From 1982, it's going to be Black Sabbath, Live Evil going up against Ozzy Osbourne, Speak of the Devil. Fireworks are going to shoot all over the place on this one because I know we got some very different opinions on these albums among the panel. So stay tuned for that and a whole lot more. For Bryce and Jamie, I am Pete. See you all later on. Take care. Bye-bye.